When John Witherspoon passed away, Hollywood only gave him a few brief lines of news. No tributes, no retrospectives. But for Ice Cube, it wasn't just a loss. It was a wound that never healed. Now at 56, he has finally broken his silence, revealing the buried footage that the film industry never wanted to talk about. Behind the glitter of Friday were rejected scripts, deleted scenes, and a forgotten legend. Ice Cube is done with the silence. He wants justice for his on-screen father, John Witherspoon. But what made Hollywood so afraid that it had to keep the truth hidden? The man who turned laughter into an immortal legacy. If one only looked at the bursts of laughter he created on screen, few would know that John Witherspoon had endured a long, quiet, and exhausting journey to be recognized. He was not the kind of star who shone overnight, but a man who lit up the stage little by little, with sweat, wit, and unwavering faith. Born in 1942 in Detroit, in a family of 11 children, young John Witherspoon, his birth name grew up surrounded by jazz music and the breath of a poor neighborhood, where laughter was the only way to forget hardship. In the 1960s, while many young black men chose to carry protest signs for civil rights, he chose to stand in front of a microphone telling stories about life, about people, and making the whole room laugh. In 1966, Witherspoon began performing stand-up comedy at small clubs in Detroit. Although he had no formal training, he possessed a special weapon, the ability to observe everyday details deeply and turn them into laughter. Thanks to that gift, he quickly caught the eye of the New York comedy scene and moved to Los Angeles in the early 1970s, a time when black comedians like Richard Pryor, Red Fox, and Flip Wilson were breaking barriers in an entertainment industry still full of racial obstacles. Fortune came when Witherspoon joined The Richard Pryor Show in 1977, a groundbreaking program in both content and social defiance. At that time, he was already over 35, no longer young to start fresh, but he had the experience and spontaneity that Pryor especially admired. Pryor once said, "If anyone could steal my spotlight, it's John." What sounded like a joke was true, because in just a few minutes of screen time, Witherspoon could make audiences burst into laughter with just a raised eyebrow or a sudden turn. In the 1980s, while many black actors struggled to find a foothold, John remained steadfast with his own acting style, a blend of naturalness, self-mockery, and gentle defiance. He appeared in low-budget but sharply satirical comedies like Robert Townsend's Hollywood Shuffle 1987 and I'm Gonna Get You Sucka 1988, works that would later lay the foundation for the black cinema movement. Even in supporting roles, every time he appeared, audiences remembered him. Because John Witherspoon didn't act as if he were reading a script. He lived in every line, every gesture. In 1990, his role as the grumpy neighbor in House Party lasted just over 2 minutes, yet it was enough to make the entire theater erupt in laughter. His line, "Be quiet." "I'm trying to sleep," which seemed like a throwaway, became the highlight that helped the film spread across black and white cinemas alike. People began to notice there was this middle-aged black man, not handsome or glamorous, but able to make you laugh just by looking straight into the camera. The real turning point came in 1992, with Boomerang, the romantic comedy starring Eddie Murphy, Hal Berry, and Martin Lawrence. In the film, Witherspoon played Mr. Jackson, a flamboyantly dressed middle-aged man preaching about how to coordinate your outfit. The remarkable thing was that this iconic scene wasn't in the script at all. John himself chose the colorful mushroom-patterned suit and improvised the entire "You've got to coordinate bang bang bang" monologue. Eddie Murphy, the film's star, asked the crew to shoot the improvised scene again, believing Witherspoon had just created solid gold on screen. He was right. The brief scene was later ranked among the 50 classic comedy moments of the 1990s, and the phrase "bang bang bang" became a pop culture phenomenon quoted thousands of times on television. Yet fame did not come with glory. For over 3 decades, John Witherspoon was never nominated for an Emmy or an Oscar. Magazines rarely mentioned him, even though he appeared in more than 40 films and over 100 television episodes, from The Wayans Brothers to The Tracy Morgan Show. His career was like a jazz tune, not loud or flashy, but rich, soulful, and sincere. Ice Cube once recalled their first meeting on the set of Friday, 1995. "I hadn't even read my lines yet, and he made the whole crew laugh so hard we had to stop filming." He didn't act to make people laugh. He acted because that's who he was. That human-centered humor made Witherspoon the most beloved black father figure on American screens, strict yet playful, reminding audiences that behind every laugh lay gentle lessons about family and pride. When the Friday series exploded, earning $28 million USD from a $3.5 million budget, John Witherspoon's name became inseparable from the franchise. Pops Craig's Ice Cube's father was the film's soul, the embodiment of a generation of black parents who had endured hardship and now watched their children struggle in a chaotic world of poverty and violence. Every line of his, from "Don't nobody go in the bathroom for 45 minutes" to "You win some, you lose some, but you live to fight another day" became a cultural symbol quoted by millions of Americans to this day. But what made John Witherspoon truly special wasn't just the laughter. It was how he taught audiences to look within themselves. In a 2004 interview, he said, "I don't want people to remember me as a comedian. I want them to remember that I once helped them forget their sadness, even if only for a few minutes." And perhaps that's why, even without a single award, he remains the father of modern black comedy. And it was precisely at that moment between the height of fame and Hollywood's quiet neglect that the most tragic chapter of John Witherspoon, the bond between Ice Cube and Pops. Not every friendship in Hollywood is real, but the relationship between Ice Cube and John Witherspoon was something rare, a connection built on respect, affection, and a bond that transcended the spotlight. In 1995, when Ice Cube, then only 26, wrote and produced Friday, he had no big budget, no studio backing, only the belief that his neighborhood story deserved to be told. And at the top of his dream cast list was John Witherspoon. No audition, no agent negotiations. Ice Cube simply called, "You're the only person I can see playing Craig's father." Witherspoon laughed, his Detroit accent thick. "So is your dad as funny as me?" Ice Cube answered immediately, "Not at all. He's strict. But you make me see the man behind that toughness." That emotion created Pops Mr. Willie Jones, the grumbling yet warm-hearted father, stern but full of love. And within just a few scenes, Pops became the heart of Friday. More than a comic relief, Witherspoon breathed soul into the character. A black father who had struggled through life loving his son in a rough but genuine way. Ice Cube recalled in his 2019 eulogy for Witherspoon, "I chose him because he reminded me of my own father, only funnier. He made every scene feel real." Even before casting Chris Tucker as Smokey, Ice Cube believed that as long as John was in it, the movie would be funny no matter who else showed up. And he was right. With only a $3.5 million budget, Friday grossed nearly $28 million, becoming a cultural explosion that forced Hollywood to recognize the power of black comedy. On set, Ice Cube called Witherspoon Pops, even when the camera stopped rolling. Everyone else did too. He didn't just teach acting, he taught humanity. Mike Epps, who played Day-Day in Next Friday, remembered his first day on set. "I was so nervous I forgot my lines. He came over, put his hand on my shoulder and said, 'Relax, let the funny come to you. Laugh for real, don't act it.' That one line erased all the pressure. And that very scene made audiences roar with laughter." That simplicity was what made Witherspoon revered. He never acted like a star, even when the nation called him a legend. He brought his lunch from home, drank cheap coffee, and told old stories while waiting for his next shot. Ice Cube once said, "He didn't live like a celebrity. He lived like a real person," and that's why everyone believed him. For nearly 20 years, from Friday to Next Friday 2000 and Friday After Next 2002, Ice Cube and Witherspoon were more than co-workers. They were family. Between takes, they shared lunch, talked about music, about Detroit and Compton, two poor cities that raised fighters. Cube often joked Pops, "If it weren't for you, I'd never have learned to laugh at failure." Witherspoon would grin and reply, "If you don't laugh, Hollywood will make you cry." After Friday's success, Ice Cube planned another sequel last Friday. The script was completed, preliminary contracts signed, and Witherspoon was ready to return to the role of his life. But in 2019, before the project could begin, John Witherspoon suddenly passed away at 77. The news silenced Hollywood, but Ice Cube was the one who grieved the most. On social media, he wrote, "I'll miss you forever, Pops. You made the whole world laugh without even trying." At the memorial service in Los Angeles, Cube appeared in a black suit. No long speech, just one sentence that brought tears to the room. "We used to make comedies, but today I just want to cry." Then he shared their last conversation. I asked him, "Pops, how are you feeling?" He said, "Still got enough energy to shoot one more Friday." I laughed, and that was the last time. That affection was more than nostalgia. It proved that something rare still exists in cold Hollywood sincerity. Ice Cube once said, "John taught me that comedy isn't a way to escape pain, it's a way to overcome it." Indeed, every line Pops ever said now feels like Witherspoon's own message to young black generations. Keep laughing, even when life won't let you. When Ice Cube returned to the Friday set 25 years later, he stood silently by the old wooden chair where Witherspoon once sat. "I swear I can still hear him laughing," he told Entertainment Weekly. "If Friday was my story, Pops was its heart. That's why Ice Cube never made Last Friday." He said plainly, "I can't make Friday without him. No one can replace John Witherspoon. No one can recreate that feeling." And perhaps just as Pops once said in the film, "You live to fight another day." Ice Cube keeps fighting, but now to preserve the memory of his on-screen father. Their relationship was something Hollywood rarely offers. A father-son bond so real the world believed it. And though John Witherspoon is gone, Pops lives on in the laughter, the memories, and in Ice Pops, the immortal symbol of black laughter. In 1995, when Friday premiered, no one in the crew imagined they had just created one of the greatest black cultural monuments of the 1990s. The film had a modest $3.5 million budget, was shot in 20 days with no A-list stars, no special effects, just the ordinary scenes of South Central where Black Americans lived, loved, and struggled through poverty. Yet it was precisely that simplicity combined with John Witherspoon's barefoot humor that turned Friday into a phenomenon beyond anyone's expectations. $28 million at the box office, millions of VHS copies sold, and hundreds of lines that became street classics. At the center of that storm was a man in a robe holding a newspaper grumbling at his son. And in just a few seconds of screen time, he made all of America burst into laughter. Don't nobody go in the bathroom for 45 minutes? The outrageous warning from Father Willie Jones became one of the most unforgettable comedic moments of 1990s cinema. It wasn't just a line, it was a cultural mark, the simplicity, honesty, and charm of an African-American working-class father, not perfect, but loving his son with all his heart. Ice Cube once said in an interview with comicbook.com, "No one else could play Pops except John. He didn't act funny, he was funny." Indeed, Witherspoon never had to try to make people laugh. Just a glance or a frown was enough to send the audience into hysterics. He represented a generation of artists who brought comedy back to everyday life, where laughter came from truth, not performance. The success of Friday opened a new chapter for both men. Ice Cube became a powerful young black filmmaker, while John Witherspoon became America's national dad. When Next Friday 2000 premiered, it grossed nearly $60 million, double the original, proving the immense appeal of the Craig and Pops duo. In the film, Willie Jones wasn't just the main comic relief, but the moral anchor of the story, a father teaching his son that laughter doesn't mean weakness. It's how you rise after every fall. 2 years later, Friday After Next 2002 cemented Witherspoon's legendary status. Amid the absurd situations, his character retained a deep humanity, a kind of comedy that made people not just laugh, but remember. In one scene when Ice Cube's character is disheartened by life, Pops simply says, "You win some, you lose some, but you live to fight another day." No one expected that 17 years later, when John Witherspoon passed away, that very line would be shared by millions in remembrance of him. Friday's success went far beyond the big screen. The name Pops became a phenomenon. People called him Hollywood's dad, a symbol of humor, firmness, and warmth. Around the same time, John Witherspoon also shone on television as Pops in the sitcom The Wayans Brothers 1995 to 1999. Over its 5 seasons on WB, he portrayed a loving father who disciplined and laughed with his 2 sons. The 2 Pops, one on film, one on TV, were both embraced by audiences as family. Curiously, even while playing the same type of character, Witherspoon never repeated himself. Pops in Friday carried the spirit of the street's gritty blunt, sometimes crude but always real. Meanwhile, Pops in The Wayans Brothers had a gentler charm, gruff yet kind, the kind of father who could turn every mistake into a life lesson with a joke. Many critics called him the Charlie Chaplin of black comedy, a man who could talk about poverty, prejudice, and failure in the language of laughter. John Witherspoon's influence reached far beyond film. From Chris Tucker and Mike Epps to Kevin Hart, all called him Pops in real life. The Wayans brothers once said, "Without John, we'd never have learned how to make people laugh without hurting them." Arsenio Hall, his longtime friend, wrote on Twitter the day he died, "John Witherspoon, a brother, a legend. Thank you for every laugh." Jamie Foxx called him a true legend, a man who's gone, but will never be forgotten. That statement wasn't just a farewell. It was Hollywood's long overdue recognition of a man who spent over 50 years. The forgotten behind-the-scenes archives. Behind the roaring laughter and the image of the nation's dad that John Witherspoon left behind lies a story few people know. A story of injustice, loneliness, and the neglect of the very industry he once brightened. To audiences, Pops was the soul of Friday, but to Hollywood, he was merely a funny supporting actor. That contrast painted the latter part of Witherspoon's life with quiet bitterness. In 1995, Friday became a box office earthquake. But while fans were still laughing at the sight of Willie Jones scolding his son with a newspaper in hand, few knew that the man behind that iconic scene was paid only $5,000 for the role. No revenue share, no bonus, no recognition. John Witherspoon once said bitterly on the Joe Rogan Experience that movie made over $300 million. But nobody ever came back and said, "Hey John, the film made a killing. Here's a little extra for you." No, that never happens in Hollywood. That line was both funny and heartbreaking. $5,000, the wage of a bit-part actor, was the price paid for a performance that became an American cultural icon. It wasn't until next Friday 2000 that his paycheck rose to $400,000, a seemingly large sum, but still only a fraction of what A-list stars like Eddie Murphy or Martin Lawrence were earning at the time. Yet Witherspoon never complained. He simply said, "I'm happy I made people laugh, but I still have to pay the electric bill, you know." The way he said "I need that check" half-jokingly in a 2018 interview revealed a harsh truth. Hollywood might laugh with you, but it doesn't always share with you. After Friday. After next 2002, Ice Cube and Witherspoon planned to close the saga with Last Friday. 2 full scripts were completed. Warner Brothers promised to greenlight the project, but everything was shelved indefinitely. The reason not aligned with current market tastes. A vague phrase meaning Hollywood didn't want to invest further in a franchise tied to black neighborhood culture. Witherspoon kept waiting. For nearly 20 years, he believed they'd eventually make it. In one interview, he chuckled, "If they do it, I'll definitely be there. I told Cube Warner Brothers said they would. So I'm just waiting. I need that check, man." What sounded like a joke carried deep sadness, a longing to work, to perform, to return to his audience. When he passed away in 2019, Last Friday was still collecting dust on Warner's desk. And Ice Cube later admitted bitterly, "We were too late. They kept us waiting too long." But money was only the visible part of the story. Beneath it was systemic neglect. The behind-the-scenes footage and candid moments of John Witherspoon where he cracked jokes that made the entire crew collapse with laughter were tucked away, never released. Mike Epps once recalled, "I still have a tape of John telling stories during the next Friday shoot. He had us all laughing so hard we had to stop filming." But that scene got cut from the theatrical version. Such material, if preserved, would be a treasure not only for Friday, but for the history of American comedy. Yet Hollywood didn't value it. Just as in 1992, the legendary Boomerang scene with Witherspoon's "Bang Bang Bang" line almost got cut for runtime reasons. If not for Eddie Murphy's intervention, one of the greatest improvised moments in comedy history might never have seen the light of day. These anecdotes expose a grim reality. No matter how brilliant black talent could still be sidelined, simply for not fitting Hollywood's star mold. John Witherspoon had no powerful manager, no major studio backing, no scandals, no hunger for fame, only genuine laughter. And in an industry where profit outweighs art, that's sometimes not enough. After his death, many collaborators began sharing untold behind-the-scenes stories. Mike Epps, Ice Cube, even Jamie Foxx all said, "Friday only became immortal thanks to Witherspoon's energy." The Wayans brothers revealed that during breaks, he would stand in the middle of the set, tell old stories, mimic celebrities, and make the whole crew burst out laughing. Moments never recorded but unforgettable to those who witnessed them. Those lost materials, if they still exist, are probably sitting quietly somewhere in Warner Brothers. Film vaults gathering dust among thousands of other reels. They might hold glimpses of a genius, a man who turned his entire life into laughter, then left quietly without ever seeing his work truly honored. And perhaps that is John Witherspoon's greatest tragedy. Not that he never won a golden statue, but that the footage capturing his simple brilliance has been buried in silence. Yet for everyone who worked with him, Witherspoon was never a supporting actor. He was the soul of every scene, the man who could make the world laugh even before the cameras. Death and Hollywood's silence. John Witherspoon passed away suddenly on October 29, 2019, in his cozy home in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles. A heart attack came without warning, closing the 77-year journey of a man who devoted his entire life to making the world laugh. In an instant, audiences everywhere were stunned. The Black community mourned him as though losing a father, a symbol of humor both simple and profound. Yet what hurt most was not his death, but Hollywood's chilling silence. As the sad news spread, those who had worked with Witherspoon poured out their emotions. But amid the wave of grief, Hollywood, the industry he had served for over half a century, barely spoke. No official tribute from the Academy, no special feature on major networks, no grand memorial like those held for veteran actors. Everything was reduced to a few brief notes on Variety or Deadline, quickly swept aside by the next entertainment headline. That indifference reached its peak at the 2020 Oscars, when the giant screen played the In Memoriam segment honoring artists who had passed away that year. Audiences waited to see John Witherspoon's face, the man who had brought laughter through Friday, Boomerang, The Wayans Brothers, The Boondocks, and dozens of other works. But he was nowhere to be found. An eerie, painful omission. Immediately after the ceremony, outrage erupted online. The fan page Sister Celluloid called it a shameful act of forgetting. Thousands flooded the Academy's page with comments. "You couldn't remember, Pops. Without him, you'd never understand what neighborhood comedy is." Essence magazine wrote, "The Oscars may honor great filmmakers, but they forget that working-class laughter is part of America's soul." The disappointment came not only from fans. Many Black actors spoke out. Regina King, Witherspoon's co-star in The Boondocks, said he was a trailblazer, someone who brought Black life to the screen without pretending. Arsenio Hall called Hollywood's silence a slap in the face to culture. Ice Cube chose a softer protest, posting a behind-the-scenes photo from Friday, with the caption, "Hollywood may forget, but we won't." And indeed, it was the community, not the studios, that kept his memory alive. Compilation videos titled Best of Pops on YouTube reached millions of views within days of his death. Netizens shared his legendary moments. Willie Jones yelling in the bathroom, the bang 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 scene from Boomerang, and his unforgettable one-liners from the Wayans Brothers. On Reddit, one user wrote, "John Witherspoon is the reason my dad and I watch Friday every Thanksgiving. Now he's really gone." But Hollywood's still silent, as if Witherspoon had never existed in its glittering halls. No golden statue, no public memorial, only the familiar indifference reserved for those outside the mainstream. For a Black actor who came from Detroit's stand-up clubs, his laughter seemed good enough for the working class, but not enough to be etched into official history. His death thus became the symbol of a harsh truth. Hollywood still doesn't know how to honor the laughter born beyond its spotlight. He left without fanfare, without media coverage, without live tributes, but in the hearts of millions. Especially Black audiences who grew up with Friday. John Witherspoon remains Pops, the spiritual father who turned ordinary moments into legend. And perhaps that is why Ice Cube could not stay silent. When Hollywood turned away, he chose to speak. What he revealed afterward about the buried footage, the hidden stories, and the price of truth forced the world to look again at the man Hollywood had once. The hidden truth revealed by Ice Cube. After years of keeping his guilt inside, Ice Cube finally broke his silence. At John Witherspoon's funeral in November 2019, in a hall bathed in warm golden light and muffled sobs, the rapper, actor, producer stepped up to the podium. No script, no notes, just words from the heart. And in the hushed crowd, he uttered a sentence that shook Hollywood. "I'm truly sorry, my friend, for not getting the next Friday made in time. It wasn't my fault, it was those idiots in Hollywood over at New Line. I gave them 2 scripts, but they never wanted to do it. That's the truth. The words sliced through nearly 2 decades of silence like a knife. The room fell still. Some bowed their heads in tears. Others nodded, as if someone had finally said what they'd all been thinking. Last Friday, the film that was supposed to close the journey of Witherspoon and Ice Cube was never made, not because fans didn't want it, but because Hollywood's system abandoned it. Ice Cube looked down at his friend's casket, his voice trembling. "We tried for years, but never made it in time. At least, we had 3 movies memories, and love we shared with each other." It wasn't just a farewell. It was the confession of a man burdened by a spiritual debt to his friend. Ice Cube once said it was Witherspoon who helped him find his artistic identity in the first Friday. Now, with his friend gone before returning to the screen, he felt as if a piece of their generation's memory had been stolen. In an interview with Seth Meyers marking Friday's 25th anniversary, Ice Cube spoke with somber tone. "We still haven't gotten over the pain. He wasn't just funny, people saw him as a clown, but I knew John was deep serious and full of thought. He taught us how to laugh, but also how to live." Those words made audiences see Witherspoon differently. Behind that humorous face was an experienced, intelligent man full of reflection. A man who understood that comedy wasn't just for laughter, it was a mirror for society, a way for Black people to see themselves without pity. Ice Cube also shared personal, never-before-told stories, small yet touching details of humanity. Every morning, Witherspoon brought a lunchbox his wife had packed, sharing food with the crew. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave. During tense scenes, he'd joke, "Cut it, man. Don't look so serious. People don't pay to see you sad." And everyone would burst out laughing. The Wayans brothers once said, "He never lectured, but every word he spoke was a lesson in the craft and in life." Once, when asked if he saw himself as America's dad, after playing Pops Witherspoon just laughed, "Nah, I'm just the dad for people who need a laugh." And there's a lot of those in America. That was his essence, funny, yet deeply philosophical. And that's exactly what Ice Cube wanted audiences to remember. Not the Witherspoon of slapstick gags, but an artist who used laughter to fight stereotypes, proving that small neighborhood stories in South Central deserved as much respect as any Hollywood tragedy. After the funeral, Ice Cube publicly shared more details once buried about last Friday. He revealed the first completed script dated back to 2012, featuring Pops delivering one final lesson to his son, a touching full-circle ending to their story. But New Line Cinema rejected it, calling it too emotional and not commercial enough. The second script was ordered to be rewritten to fit younger audiences, and then everything went silent. That silence, Ice Cube said, was what Witherspoon died waiting for. A waiting he described as a wound that never healed. During the memorial, he declared, "If they don't let me make that film, I'll tell the story another way. John deserves to be remembered." And he meant it. Since 2020, Ice Cube has released old behind-the-scenes videos, unseen photos, and stories of their friendship on podcasts and interviews. He speaks of Witherspoon as a second father, the man who taught him that true comedy isn't in the lines, it's in the heart. Thanks to Ice Cube, the world finally saw the full truth about John Witherspoon. Not just Pops, not just a comedian, but a witness to a generation of Black artists who had to laugh to survive. More than anything, Ice Cube did what Hollywood wouldn't. He told his friend's story with pure respect, love, and unending remorse. Now, at 56, Ice Cube reflects on the road behind him with quiet remorse. He has come to realize the greatest lesson John Witherspoon ever taught him: cherish your colleagues while they're still here. The long wait for Hollywood to approve. Last Friday made him understand the true cost of delay. By the time everything was ready, Pops was gone. Since then, Ice Cube has fought to reclaim the production rights to Friday, vowing never to let anyone distort his late friend's legacy. He knows that if he doesn't protect their story, no one else will. Ice Cube also learned that Witherspoon's real worth was never in fame or money, but in the love of the audience. Every year, he still posts a picture of Pops with the simple words, "Miss you, Pops," a quiet but profound tribute. To him, Witherspoon's legacy isn't just laughter, it's a lesson in kindness, humility, and integrity in a world driven by calculation. And Ice Cube knows this. As long as he keeps telling the story, Pops will never be forgotten.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now during on screen.